Metro Louisville. We also have some guests here from EPA, and what we're here to talk about is the Rubbertown NGE demonstration project, or under the RARE project. And so you've heard that name out there before, I would think. And what we're going to talk about a little bit are some research into air monitoring systems and equipment that EPA will be conducting in Louisville. And so we're very fortunate that Louisville was chosen to do this research. I think it's going to give us a lot of good information. At the end of the day, we hope it gives us some additional equipment that we can utilize in our work in air quality. We have some guests here, and so I'll start some introductions. We have, and I'll let them give their title so I don't get it wrong, but we have Ken Mitchell from EPA, and your title?
I'm the Special Assistant to the Clean Air Director.
All right. We have Cheryl Good from EPA Region 4.
And I'm a physical scientist in the Office of Environmental Justice and Sustainability.
And then online we have Jane Spann. Jane?
Yes.
And if you
yes,
could...
hello everyone. I'm with EPA Region 4 in the Air Division, and I'm a coach on the project.
Okay, and Jane, you're going to have to speak up a little bit so everyone can hear you.
Okay, you want me to repeat myself?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Hi everyone. Yes, I'm with EPA Region 4 here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I work in the same division there with Ken Mitchell. I am one of the co-leads for the project, the Next Generation Emission Measuring Demonstration Project.
We also have online Dr. Evan Toma, and he is the lead researcher on this project. Evan?
Hi everyone, this is Evan Toma. I'm with U.S. EPA Office of Research and Development, and I'm actually in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And I am happy to work with the team of folks here, and I'm going to be presenting some slides in a few minutes after Keith finishes with the introduction.
All right, thank you, Evan. It sounds like someone else came online. Is there someone new online?
Hey Keith, I'm sorry. This is Terry Barrow, and I'm with EPA Region 4.
All right, glad to have you, Tyranny.
Okay.
Anyone else online? Okay, then we also have some additional staff from APCD. We have Michelle King.
Hi, Executive Administrator and Director of Program Planning at the Air Pollution Control District.
Rick Wilson.
Williams.
Sorry.
Permanent engineer.
In the back, Tom.
Communications specialist.
And up front we have
Rachel Hamilton, I'm the Assistant Director.
and then also we have Tom.
I'm Tom Lobb, the Air Monitoring Project Supervisor.
All right, I think that covers all of those folks. And so what we'll do is just go on and move right into the meeting. We're going to have Evan talk a little bit about the purpose of the meeting and the project, and a little bit about what EPA is doing here. So Evan?
Thanks, Keith. Again, my name is Evan Toma, and I'm with the research part of EPA, and I have some slides here. I think you guys can see some slides. You should see a title slide that says Rubbertown NGEM Demonstration Project.
We do, and Evan, just let me know when you want me to advance, and I'll go to the next one.
Okay, will do. And first of all, I just want to apologize to the folks attending because I had intended to be there in person to meet you and talk to you about this project. And in fact, I was in Louisville working on the project on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week, and I had to return back to Raleigh today. So I look forward to the next opportunity to talk to you in person about what we're trying to do with this research effort. And let me first just say that I'm presenting this for a team of folks, some of which are on the call, Jane and Tierney and Cheryl, and others we work with here at EPA, and of course we're very happy and appreciative of the collaboration of APCD for this project. And so in these slides I'm going to tell you about what we're trying to accomplish for this effort, and it is what we call an internal research project within EPA. It's a relatively modestly funded project, and we have some sort of specific scope. So We're not going to be able to answer all the questions that folks may be interested in, but I think we're going to have a project that generates some useful and important new information. Could you go to the next slide, please, Michelle?
Yes.
So first of all, what do we mean by this term, next generation monitoring, or NGEM? And what we're talking about here are ways to detect emissions from facilities to give us a new picture on what's coming out of facilities, and can we do something about it? Can we provide information that would be useful to the facilities to help find emissions that sometimes they may not be aware of? And so NGEM, for short, Next Generation Emission Measurements, NGEM, we believe can help us understand certain sources of air pollution. And what do we want to do for this project? We want to work together with APCD and others, and instrument vendors, and even industry, to try new forms of next generation emission approaches in the Rubber Town area. We want to learn about new methods for detecting things like fugitive leaks and malfunctions, and also we want to learn a bit about the air pollution sources that are in Rubber Town. This is a research project, and we want to learn about everything we can. Michelle, could you go to the next slide, please? So here you should see a picture of, Michelle, are you stepping through this in sort of slideshow mode?
One
okay, so
click at a time.
I'll ask you to click.
Okay.
And when you click, you'll see stuff pop up. So I failed to do that on the first slide. Sorry. So here you see a picture of a facility in a community, neighboring community, and there really traditionally have been two ways in which emissions have been detected through measurements. So here, click once, please, Michelle. Here you have an emission in a facility. Perhaps this is a leak that occurs in the facility. There are manual leak detection, click please, repair practices. Here you see a gentleman with, you should see a guy with a hydrocarbon sniffer checking flanges and valves, looking for leaks in the facilities. Click one more time, please. And the other way that we have detected emissions traditionally has been through certain types of ambient air monitoring systems that are placed at pretty far distances away from the facility. And one more click. These two types of systems now are, just go ahead and click through that, Michelle. This is going to be too tedious otherwise. So these two types of systems, the direct source detection and the permanent ambient monitoring station, are the two traditional ways to detect emissions. And we're working on techniques that work in between these two areas, sort of at the fence line or at the edge of communities, that can help detect when something happens on a facility perhaps, and help, even within the facility, help alert the folks in the facility to take action potentially to remedy, mitigate an emission that needs to be fixed. On the next slide, you should see several types of next generation emission measurement tools. There's a number of things that we're looking at. Some of them are mobile type systems, and some of them are new types of fence line systems. And these technologies we're developing. Well, some of them are developed within EPA, and some are developed in collaboration with different instrument vendors. And so, for our project, we're bringing these systems in and working collaboratively with the sophisticated systems, the Auto GC that Louisville is putting at the firearms training site. We're making measurements along with them, and we want to make measurements in different parts of Rubber Town and try to test these techniques and see how they work. That's why it's called an NGEM demonstration study. Go to the next slide, please. And here you'll see an example of a demonstration that we did in Houston. You should see the slide is titled NGEM Demo in Houston Mobile Work Truck Monitoring. And so here you see an example trace on Google Earth of a mobile work truck that is driving around inside of the facility. And here you can think in the future, as the folks work in the facilities and they're driving around in a normal course of business, their trucks can be instrumented with special sensors. In this case, we detected a benzene leak in a process unit. Now, this is in Houston, Texas. So this is one example of next generation emission measurement. And we can do some of this now inside the facility and outside the facility. If you click a couple times, Michelle, you'll see that there's also fence line monitors, which do essentially the same thing from a stationary position. There's prototype versions of these things. They can detect emissions that occur inside the facility. And it's also possible to do mobile measurement from outside the facility fence line. If you go to the next slide, you'll see a graph which shows a combination of the cost of monitoring technologies, and click a couple times, you'll see today's technology, things like the auto GC that APCD is putting at the firearms training site, very sophisticated technologies which are super powerful and high performance, but you can't really put too many of those around an area because they cost so much. And so what we're trying to do with the NGEM, if you click a couple times, is drive the cost down so we can have monitoring technologies which work pretty well. They're not as good as the most sophisticated approaches, but they work well enough to help us understand how things are going around facilities, and it will help facilities perhaps find emissions that they may need to fix them as soon as they can. That's the idea, to lower the overall impact of emissions. So the NGEM systems are lower cost systems, so sensors, you might call them. Next slide, please. So who is part of this effort? Well, this is a team of folks with the research part of EPA and our contractors and a lot of folks at Region 4 and Louisville Metro APCD. We also might work with industries as part of this project. We have told the Rubbertown industries about what we're doing. We've met with them by phone and in person. We're wondering, we're hoping that some will want to participate in the study as the study goes on, to maybe try some of these fence line or mobile work truck systems inside their facilities. So that's an ongoing conversation we have with Rubbertown facilities. So far, no one has taken us up on that offer, but we continue to work. And of course, community, folks in this room, this is our third community meeting, and we're going to have more, and we want to hear from you, hear what you think, and what you guys know a lot about what's going on around you, and we want to understand that. Next slide, please. So this project is an internally funded EPA research effort. It's called a regional applied research effort, a RARE project, and it's a relatively focused topic. We're going to be making measurements. So Michelle, are you on slide 7? Just to check.
I am.
Sure we're okay. Great, perfect. The project focus, we're going to be making these next generation emission measurements near Rubbertown facilities. We're going to be looking at gas phase air pollutants. And so, as the folks in this room know, there's a lot of different kinds of air pollutants. There are particulate matter and other types of things that can cause effects. We're looking at things like emissions of gas compounds that come from the industry, the kind of stuff that they may emit. Things like 1,3-butadiene would be an example. And so we're looking at certain types of these gas phase air pollutants. We can't measure all of them. Some of the techniques can measure quite a bit, though. And some are sort of just measure broad groups of compounds. So one question that's very important to answer is this a community health or exposure study? And the answer to that is no. We're not aiming to do a comprehensive health or exposure study. This is a study that will test these these source detection techniques. Now we're going to be able to inform some aspects of emissions from the Rubbertown facilities. We're confident of that, but we're not going to be able to provide in this relatively limited scope project a comprehensive answers to air pollution exposure and effects on community health. The other thing to note up front is that this is not an enforcement or compliance activity. This is a research effort by EPA and its collaborators. We are, we're not compelling the industry to do anything. We're offering to work with them to help them better understand some of the opportunities in these emission detection technologies. If we find information that is relevant to a facility, we're going to tell them about it, because maybe they'll be able to fix an emission that they may not know about, and we can document that as part of the process. We're going to provide information to communities in forums just as we are currently attending here. Periodically update you on what's going on with our project, and of course we're going to publish this information in peer-reviewed scientific journals as we go forward. Next slide, please. We're on slide 8.
Yes.
So what do we want to accomplish with this project? Well, we want to work together to try new next-generation emission measurement approaches in Rubbertown. That's the primary effort. We want to learn about these systems. We want to learn about these new methods and how they might be able to help in the future. We want to develop things and document things as much as we can. And additionally, we want to learn something about air pollution sources in Louisville, and we want to add to the growing knowledge that's being built about Louisville, and we want to collaborate with the great work that's going on with the new systems APCD is installing. We want to advance next-generation emission measurement science. We want to try to understand some issues and document improvements as we can. And if you click, so when is this project going to happen? Well, I'm happy to report that we're actually in the field now making measurements. And so it took us 6 months or so to plan the project, and we began our first set of measurements in mid-September, and we're rolling now, doing some work. We're not fully implemented yet. About half the stuff is in place, but we're moving forward. We expect that the full data processing and analysis and publishing this project will take quite a while, a couple of years to get all the information out there. But as mentioned, we're going to be sharing the information as we go forward. So you guys will see how it's going as we move forward through community meetings like this. Now, if you go to the next slide, you'll give you a better picture of where we're making measurements. Here you see sort of the Rubbertown section of the study, and you'll notice these yellow dots. These yellow dots represent our main monitoring stations. Most of these yellow dots, there's going to be a certain type of technology called a passive sampler located at these yellow dots. And you'll notice at many of the sites there'll be also other sensor technologies. And you'll notice that most of the measurements are conducted really close to the facilities, and part of the reason for that is many of the systems that we're looking at are designed to work near facilities. It's much harder, and it requires much more expensive equipment to make measurements farther away from the facilities, because as you move away in distance, the concentration of the pollutants decrease over time. You'll see we do have passive samplers at Cane Run and Carter elementary schools. And so we do have 2 measurements that are a couple of kilometers away from the facilities, but the majority of things are being done really close proximity to the facility. So this is part of the reason why, we can't do a comprehensive community impact study, because we're not able to make measurements in communities with this type of technology for this project. So on the next slide here, how our information will be shared. Well, we have a general project information, updates, project fact sheets, which I think you guys have some copies there. our quality assurance project plan, which is a full description of what we're doing and presentations and things. The APCD website will house this information. And we'll also mention that we are taking what we call raw field data, which is data that we can access on essentially a daily basis. And in some cases, we may see emissions coming from a facility that we think that the facility needs to know about. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it does happen, we are trying to develop a way to share these with the facility, communicate, mostly by email with the specific contacts at the facilities, letting them know that they may want to check something or we're seeing something. So we're going to be sharing that data in some format, likely with industry if it's found. The next level of data is preliminary data, and so this is data that has been through our QA review to a certain level, and we have some confidence in it. We're going to be sharing that with you guys and with others and with industry as well in quarterly meetings. So this is pre-publication type, what we're seeing as we go forward. And then, of course, there's the finalized results, where we really take all we learned and we make our best assessment of both the technologies and what we're seeing for sources, and we publish that at conferences and in scientific journals and etc. And so we want to share this information in collaboration with APCD as a team. Including you guys, including the community, we want to interact with you in that way. Next slide, please. So I'll mention that our measurements and the technologies that we're using are documented in pretty high level of detail in what we call a quality assurance project plan, and that is going to be available on the APCD website. We've already provided copies of the Quality Assurance Project Plan at community meeting number 2 back in July. And we're always interested in feedback from the community or the scientific advisors that work with the different community groups. And the Quality Assurance Project Plan is not a static document. It's never too late to provide input. We're going to be changing it over time because some of the technologies we're using may or may not work. So we're going to be adding technologies and maybe removing technologies as we learn more about what we're seeing. What kinds of sources are we seeing and what kind of levels, and we'll be changing the position of some samplers, etc. Maybe even we'll start working with one or more of the facilities. They'll want to collaborate in some aspect of the project. So the Quality Assurance Project Plan will describe all of that, and I envision it'll be changing over time as we go through this year-long project. Also, I'll just mention here that now that we have our project started, we still have some work to do to add some additional sensors, but we're kind of thinking about whether or not there's an opportunity to engage folks in the communities a little bit more completely. Is it possible to add to our next generation emission measurement project in a way that makes sense? We're not really sure, but it's definitely worth discussing with folks. So one example that that we're thinking about is odors, and you guys know, and I've been to Louisville a few times, and I think I know there's a variety of odors that one can experience in near Rubber Town, and it's interesting to think about what they mean, and in actuality, your nose is a very good sensor. There's a lot of really interesting science that can be done, citizen science, with a combination of your nose and maybe some sensors and some other type of technologies. So a couple of us here in ORD, Rochelle Duval, I don't know if Rochelle is on the call, but Rochelle is interested in asking the question: is there a project we could add on to and essentially leverage this NGEM Rare and also the work by APCD Is there a way to do this? And maybe odors is a good subject of that kind of a potential citizen science effort. So let me just go through here, and last slide, slide 13. I just want to sort of review some of the benefits of this NGEM research. So we'll just click through these. The first is we think that this type of research will help us improve understanding of the sources of air pollution in Rubbertown and in other areas that are similarly potentially impacted by facilities. The second bullet is we want to reduce local and regional airshed impacts. If you can detect an emission that needs to be mitigated early, then in principle, facilities, if they can do this themselves, they can mitigate emissions that need to be fixed and reduce the amount of pollution that makes it to the atmosphere. Also, facilities, we think, will find that the addition of sensors at their fence line or in their facilities may help create safer working environments for some types of industries, for sure. Next bullet, if facilities can find and fix leaks more quickly, they can reduce product loss, saving them money. And we click down here. This will allow us to develop more efficient work practices. And so, additionally, ultimately in the future, the availability of more measurements will help improve transparency in community relations. So we think it's a good thing to know what's in the air around you, and we've been limited up until now because the systems have been so expensive, and we're trying to develop systems that can be more cost effectively deployed and help us understand the air we breathe. So also, these types of technologies in the future, 10 years or so, can help us manage emissions better. So the last slide, slide 14, is contact information. My name is Evan Toma. Jane Spann and Tierney Bell are all on the call. Cheryl Good is there in person. Rochelle Duval is my ORD colleague that's interested in potential citizen science work. And Billy DeWitt, who I don't think is there, he's been our primary contact with APCD, but I would just take this opportunity to thank Keith and Michelle and Rachel and all the folks at APCD for a tremendous amount of time they've spent with us to discuss the project and to help us prepare and to execute this effort. APCD is playing a direct role in this. Steve Gravett should also be listed here. He's actually helping us with the passive sampler. So we're available anytime to answer questions about this project. So there I'll stop and hand it back to Keith and answer any questions.
Okay, sure.
So Evan, during this meeting you talked about communication with the companies, and the last meeting I was at and heard this, you talked about the possibility of entering into agreements with the companies, and that those agreements may involve the company saying that they don't want some of this information shared. So
yep.
My thing is that it seems to me that it's going to be unethical at minimum not to set at least some minimum levels of chemicals to guide you for when the regulatory agency and community need to be notified of elevated levels of chemicals. So we understand that.
Okay, that's a great question. So let me make sure I answer that. And
hang on just a second, Evan.
I'm sorry?
Hang on just a second. Evan, you had some more in your question.
I just wanted to make sure you understood the question because I said a lot. So.
No, yes, I think I did. I think I understood the question, and if I didn't, then please, I will. I'll have another go. But it's a very important question. So I just want to make sure that this is completely clear. Part of what I do at EPA is I work on systems, engineering systems, in, for example, the leak detection and repair area that we think will be beneficial to industry to help them reduce emissions. And so it is true that as part of this project, there is a chance that one of the companies that in Rubbertown may want to work with the research part of EPA to test some new type of sensor technology inside of their fence line to help them detect leaks, what we call next-gen emission measurements inside of their fence line. It is true that could occur. Now, I will say two things with regard to that. Number one, we have not had any takers on that, so we are currently not in any discussions with any Rubbertown company about the potential for work, engineering work or test work inside of their fence line. Now, if we did entertain such discussion, then any kind of sequestration of that data would certainly only be limited to work that would be done inside of their facilities, and we would weigh the consequences of that in that decision-making process very carefully. So number one, we are not in any current discussions with folks in that regard. And number two, you mentioned that it would be unethical to work with companies in that regard. Well, we see your point on that.
No, wait a minute, Evan. It would be unethical for you guys to see an elevation in one or more chemicals that is beyond whatever minimum that you guys do need to set as part of this project. It would be unethical for you guys to see that and just say, okay, let's write this down as part of the research, instead of calling the regulatory agency and saying, look, you have a company here that is doing this or that, and then letting the regulatory agency do what they have to do, because they may be violating their, what's going on with the STAR program or anything like that. And then on the other hand, you talk a lot about the cost of this equipment and all of that kind of stuff, but I think sometimes when you get so dug into the research aspect of it, you don't understand that we have our own household costs that we have to deal with. So, number one, my suggestion to you is to set minimum for all the chemicals, that if you have a main list of chemicals that you're looking for, have a minimum level that is set, that's a threshold where if it goes over that threshold, then you contact the Air Pollution Control District at minimum. But really the community also needs that information because we have a right to know what we're being exposed to. So, and if that deters companies from signing on to this project, then you guys need to go back, think this through, because you all have all these degrees, you're so smart, think it through and come up with some devices where you can monitor these chemicals off-site, where it's not on the chemical plant's property. Then you wouldn't have to go into any agreements with them. You do it on public property, and then you can give us the information we need so that I know that, if my son has asthma, then on that day, if we get an alert that there's some high stuff going on, I can take him to his grandmother's house. Because outside of that, it's all unethical to me.
Well, yeah, let me first say that I understand your point. Let me first say that all the measurements that we're taking now are, with the exception of measurements that are performed on Louisville Municipal Sewer District property, all the measurements that we're taking now are outside of the fence line of these facilities. So we have no arrangement or agreement with any of the chemical facilities to screen the data or not share the data. These are scientific results that will be published. And so now, as far as the communication with APCD, we are in close communication with APCD on what we find.
So are you willing to set minimum limits for these chemicals that you find in parts per billion, trillion, or however you measure it? Are you willing to set a minimum threshold that when it's gone over, you're going to contact the regulatory agency? And the community.
We're going to contact the regulatory agency with all of our data. We're sharing it essentially continuously.
If you don't mind, just to
Yeah, you talk about APCD, right?
Yeah, this is Rachel. And I just wanted to remind folks that at the same time that you're doing this experimental work, you talked about our air monitoring project at the firearms training. That's a regulatory monitor. So that's different than what Evan is doing in the field. We're providing him with regulatory information so he can test his equipment against them to see how well it works.
And I understand
that information will be available on our website.
So we need the information of anything that's over a threshold. And I hate to cut you off, but we've just listened to this long technical stuff. There's people here that I haven't really seen at other community meetings, so they need to know the real deal of how this affects them.
Absolutely.
And they need to know, will you as the regulatory agency, will the EPA have a minimum threshold so that we will know to leave our houses if we deem it necessary for the health of our kids?
There's information out there that is that emergency response threshold number. So when we get ready to go forward with our part of the project, which will go live in January, and Tom's going to give an update on where we are with our installation at firearms training, we can make that information available.
In real time?
It's
Yes.
near real time. It's about every half hour is when we think we'll have data. That compares with the once every 12-day, 24-hour sample that the West Louisville Air Toxic Study and the West Jefferson County Community Task Force used to gather their data. So it's near real time.
And how will the community get access to the data? Not
It
through
will
your
be posted
website.
to our website.
Can you send text messages or email alerts? And I think I would trust that the information will come from the health department, actually. Because the community doesn't trust you guys.
Well, I find that very unfortunate because
It is
we're
very
trying to come together in a way that we can leverage both of our interests in providing public health-based information to the community in a way that's meaningful. So we'll look to you all for help in when we set up that platform for being sure that that information is as meaningful as possible.
Well, we need to get access to it immediately so that we can get it out. And I'm saying, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm saying I would trust that the health department would give us the information before you guys would.
So I understand your comment. Again, we don't really have a way yet to figure out what resources that the health department might have for managing our data. It's data that we own and we have that platform available. We'll work collaboratively with them so that the community understands what they're seeing by all means.
Well, and I just wanted to clarify the data availability on our website. That's the platform that we have right now for criteria air pollutants from our other monitoring sites, and that's sort of the data stream that goes to that. And then we've also talked with, certainly with Dr. Toma, about the lens alert system for those actionable levels, you know, anything that would raise to that shelter-in-place type of level. So, you know, those are existing systems that we would certainly seek to, you know, kind of integrate into this project to make sure that we use the resources that people already have access to.
So we would need standard operating procedures for how, if they, when they communicate to you, what would you do next? We need to see every single step, because as of right now, even if we call it an odor that is making us sick to our stomachs, there is nothing in writing that says these are the first things you are to do as a staff, as a compliance member, of air pollution control district. I've asked for that for years.
Well, you know, she kind of halfway asked the question because I'll admit I'm new to this, my first meeting. But the other day, I had the most horrible odor that woke me up in the middle of the night. And it was coming through my air conditioning and all that. And so my question to you, and I might be repetitive, and if I am, I apologize. But what happens in the event that nobody complies? You know, so what's the plan? You know, what is plan B in the event when nobody, you know, complies to any of this? You know, because as a citizen of the West End, and particularly, they're right behind MSD. Okay, and so I'm getting a lot of that odor. My mother died from cancer, you know, because Louisville, Kentucky has the highest cancer rate in the nation. You know, and so we live in an area where we're getting all this stench and chemicals and this, that, and the other. So my question is, what happens if nobody complies? What is our next step?
What good is it if the company is not going to
Well, the monitoring that's being done right now, and Evan, I'm going back to the slide that shows where you have your sampling locations already. That for this project, all of that is outside of company property.
Right.
So that, you know, the research they're doing right now isn't working with the company specifically.
But my point is this. Okay, I understand about the research outside the property lines, but if you can't get the companies to work with you,
Oh, well,
it's not solving the problem.
that's it.
Along that line, you know, of course, APCD is a regulatory authority, and we have a wide variety of tools and mechanisms. That includes an enforcement process by which companies can be cited, fined, or made to comply.
And when is it executed? You just gave a company permission to continue doing what they're doing.
Right.
So when, like, what's the purpose of having that?
Let's go back to APCD. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because there is an outstanding notice of violation that goes back into their executions. That is something that will be coming before our board for final completion of the notice of violation process. That's still in progress. So every month when we have our board meeting, you'll know when we send out our delivery listserv advising people, it's the third Wednesday of every month. When that matter is coming before the board, it will be posted on the agenda. If companies can't resolve it through an agreed board order, then we can bring an administrative enforcement action where we have a judicial-like proceeding, an administrative hearing. So right now we're at the point where the company and the district are in negotiations for the notice of violation. If they're able to come to an agreement, it'll go before the board. If they are unable to come to an agreement, it'll go through an administrative hearing process.
And understanding that it's prospective because this equipment's just now going in, the research just is happening in our own regulatory air monitoring site is the equipment's literally just, you know, freshly out of boxes.
Are you talking about just in general, or
No, I'm talking about past emissions. Michelle's talking about.
I'm talking about going forward, we hope that those additional technologies give us more tools for compliance and enforcement. Because they will give us that
What does
data.
enforcement look like? Are you going to fine them, or like what?
That's one measure, absolutely.
So when
And
are you going to do that? When have you done that?
Okay. On our website, you can go and look.
No, I'm
at
asking you now.
all the
When have you
agreed
done that,
orders.
and when are you planning
For
to
this
fine
company or
them?
for any company?
Any company, all of them are polluting.
Okay. All of our agreed board orders are listed on our website.
We are here. We
Sure.
come out tonight to hear. We don't want to go to your website. We're asking you right now. When have you fined a company, and when do you plan to find something when they're not
A month before.
in compliance?
A month before that, I think we've had 4 or 5 agreed board orders. Let's see, this is September. We're probably up to 6. We cite companies for violations that are under a certain threshold, so we've had numerous citations that have gone for smaller matters such as dust or open burning. I don't have a complete list, but I'd be happy to send that to you if you'd like.
So when you talk about the tools and the technology and the tools, one of the things that you guys really miss out on big and could fund some of the monitoring with is the fact that we as citizens, who are the first line of this assault, are the people that you need to be utilizing for information. I've asked for so many years, where are your standard operating procedures if a citizen calls you and says, there's a terrible odor on 34th and Broadway? Nobody can give me anything written. If you had written standard operating procedures, that is the #1 tool you need, okay? Because then that alerts you to come out within a certain amount of time. We sent you guys a whole list of recommendations, and when we presented those recommendations to the Air Pollution Control District, what you said was, oh, we have this really good EPA project coming up, and it's going to, I think you're really gonna like it. It has nothing to do with the immediate response when we detect an odor or when we feel ill, or heck, the other day I was walking in Chickasaw Park and there were dead fish in it.
Or it's not when nobody's answering the phone.
Right. So when you don't have an effective procedure for when citizens call in, we're the first ones who smell it, then this is all for naught. The recommendations we sent you guys, which part of them were to locate a satellite site in Park Duval, because that's where REACT gets most of their calls from citizens. located at the Bond Avenue Fire Station. Have a staff member there during the times that we smell the odors, so you can rotate out your compliance officers every weekend. One person would have a shift every once a month or whatever on the weekends in the middle of the night, so that when we call, they can immediately go out. So that's part of some of the recommendations that we're telling you. We don't have time to wait to see if this technology works, because right now, you don't even know what technology you're going to use. You don't know who you're going to partner with. We need some immediacy right here, because this is urgent for us.
Plus, if they're not working with you all, what good is it? That's my point. If the companies are not going to work with you, what good is it?
So he can publish something in a daggone scientific journal.
Just to be clear, the companies working with, that was specific to the researchers placing equipment on their site. That did not refer to a compliance and enforcement process through the regulatory agency of APCD. That statement was very specific to the research project.
So what about these standard operating procedures? I just want everybody to hear it now. Are you guys willing to come up with standard operating procedures by a certain date?
And publish it on your website.
Let's say
Actually, I did provide
in 2
you
months.
copies of our standard operating procedure.
Did
that
you?
We have in place. I did. After one of our board meetings, I think, provided you a copy
Okay.
of, no, it was after the
I'm
meeting. that we
gonna
had in our
look.
office.
I want you to send it to me
I
again.
just reposted on the website.
I want you to send it to me again so I can look at it. Did you take into consideration the recommendations we made, or was this something you already had?
Actually, I mean, what we're looking at is something slightly different. We have worked with MSD, who admittedly is the source of a great amount of consternation. They are a regulatory body of their own. We met with their,
That's probably.
Brian Bingham, their chief engineer. We worked with Mike Moore, because they are there 24/7. At any time you call MSD's customer line and lodge a complaint, that they are helping us to understand what people are selling. Because a lot of times it's MSD.
Well,
However,
listen, and a lot of times, some of those
there's
chemicals
another-
are allowed to come to MSD as
There's
well.
another tool that we're looking at in the toolbox. It is a technology tool that we think will help us better address your concerns. And I think we'll be looking at that a little bit more deeply here in the next 2 weeks. That's something that I think would help bridge a lot of your concerns in a better way, frankly. Not in terms of, you would be able to see the data. It has forecasting capabilities for where the wind will go the next day, so that the sources are better able to understand the impact that they'll be having on the community.
And I get that, okay?
Okay.
I get
So,
it, and I'm not,
I'll be
I'm
happy to
trying
send
to
you
really,
the
I'm trying to
information
keep
to
my level here,
Sure.
because I'm feeling really,
Some kind of way.
yeah, because I don't think you're understanding, like, your chromatograph or whatever, gas chromatograph, what you're doing, what the EPA is doing with this research technology, that's all fine and dandy, because we need all the information we can get. But this is not an immediate, effective relief. What I'm telling you, we are the ones experiencing this. So you guys need to open your eyes, stop calling us agitators behind our backs and all this stuff. You need to open your minds and say, these people are experts of what they experience. And then when we give you a set of recommendations, you need to look at it and say, can we really do this? And then you need to come back and let us know, are you going to consider this or not? And then we'll come back. Because the things that you're proposing are not going to help when I'm playing tennis in Chickasaw Park with my son, and then we smell something, and I have to hurry him into the car and not even go home, but go somewhere else. So if I called you from Chickasaw Park, and you guys showed up within 15 minutes, that would be helpful with a real-time air monitor. That's going to be helpful. Not coming to my house 30 minutes later and saying, okay, we're investigating this, and I'm telling you, what did you do for the investigation, and they haven't even gone over to the chemical plants. You guys have a right to enter, at some point, these chemical plants. This long-term stuff, we need short-term immediate.
Terry?
I'm a resident in Park Duval, and I should have been at these meetings a long time ago, but I just can't bear the smells anymore. And I'm starting to be concerned about my health. I mean, so the next time I go to my doctor, I'm going to request, them check my lungs because, you know, something that they wouldn't really normally do in a regular doctor's appointment, because I am concerned. You know, it's not just the outside of your home, it's the inside of your home. You can't have company. You don't know when they're going to release these smells. At nighttime, I guess they feel like no one's going to take the time to get up and report it, but it wakes me up out of my sleep. I can't sleep. I have to put essential oils on my nose so that I can have that smell versus the other smell. So, and the other thing is, I don't know what I'm smelling. So yeah, I could call and report it, but I don't know which smell I'm smelling. And so then I don't know.
That Evan and his team have recommended is that we do a citizen project to help folks better identify odors. Because I'm going to ask this question, don't mean to be crass, so y'all just bear with me. A lot of times what we get on odors is that it smells like chemicals. What you smell in the middle of the night, is it?
Smells like crap.
Okay. So what I'm hearing actually though is what we need to do is push for a meeting where we can get folks from MSD in the room with us so they can really hear your all's complaints. What we did find out when we went in the field with MSD is that the construction of the Park Duval sewer system, they use the catch basins in the street as a way to keep the odors from coming up into the community. Sometimes those catch basins dry out. That happens across the city. You come up to an intersection and you think, wow, that's a dry catch basin. When they constructed Park Duval, there are cleanouts that allow them to go past a blockage in that catch basin so they can put a camera in there. Those caps were missing, and that allowed sewer odor to come up into the community. I'd like to recommend that what we do is go back and we approach MSD and their board and ask them to put together a community meeting here, if this is a convenient location, or if there's a better location closer to MSD's facility that you all would suggest. We're more than happy to push that to a meeting.
I would say that you're probably correct, except for the fact that those odors that we're talking about, and that Ebony has been fighting for years, has been going on for years.
I agree.
You know, and so it's not necessarily just because they're down there in Shawnee Park doing what they're doing. This has been going on for quite some time.
I understand.
You know, and not, you know, I mean, you know, it's like, also I have sarcoidosis because of the environment. That is also something that can be deadly. I have been in ICU twice in my life because of that. Now, you know, I really don't want to think that nobody's actually that concerned because you don't live in this community. But that's how I'm feeling, you know. And that hurts me as a citizen and a taxpayer. Absolutely. And everything else, you know. That hurts me, it hurts me emotionally.
There are two different odor issues here that we can chip away from. One is going to be MSD. So we will take away from this that we're going to set up a community meeting with MSD so that we can go ahead and get them focused on these problems. We've been trying, and I think that it's just time that they really hear from you all. So the other issue is the chemical odors. And so
chemical odor comes out early on, it's cool, it's low to the ground. That's when you smell chemical.
That's one thing that we're hoping that some of Evan's technology and also this other technology that we're going to look at will kind of help us be able to use that weather information to get a better idea of where odors may be going and who may be causing those odors. Yes, ma'am.
You know what is Deafblind Monitors versus I know the difference between MSD and chemicals. I've lived in there for 30 years and I know the difference in chemicals. When you talk about plants, and when they have emissions, and when they have leakage, and when they have spills, and then when you call and ask them, your neighbor's calling, did you know so-and-so chemical plant had a leak? No, I didn't know. Then you call up at the main office. We don't know anything about it. When you talk about inside of their fence, they don't have to share with you inside the fence. They should regulatory tell that there was a leak.
Absolutely.
We went for 3 days, different people, trying to find out. I'm not going to name this chemical
company. I actually took screenshot of a conversation with Exxon, right?
No.
No, not that one?
No, it wasn't.
One of these I talked, one of these I have shared with Brian Bingham, thank you for that. It was helpful.
And they did not. They said that was a small leak, but first they denied they even had a leak.
Let me help you understand just a little bit in terms of, and I think this is another meeting we need to have with MSD. So
This is not
APCD,
MSD, this is.
hang on, it is a chemical company, but APCD has jurisdiction for what goes out in the air.
Mhm.
There is in Metro Louisville a hazardous materials ordinance. So if there is a release of a reportable quantity, the plant must call 911 and the health department is dispatched. That's their role. The health department is the first responder. They then have to follow up with a report to APCD. We're not the first responders. We're consultants for the health department in the event there's a release and we have concerns that we can address. So I think for all of us, it would be helpful to have a meeting about that hazardous materials ordinance, how MSD and the health department are responsible for its enforcement, how it works through Lens Alert, which is the new system that used to be Code Red.
Transparency of when the resident calls the company or 911. I know the procedure, how it's supposed to go. And then when you call the procedure, and the procedure tells you, oh, I don't know nothing about it. Then a week later, when multiple calls are coming in, oh, yeah, we did get that call, and it wasn't that much. That's
So sometimes if you call our office, we're not the first people who get that information.
I'm talking about not even you.
Okay.
We didn't call you. We called the procedure of how it's supposed to go.
Okay.
And when they tell us they know nothing about it, and we have a chemical emission that can, let's see, I'm at another location, but I'm at a place that can take away the neighborhood.
So,
and when that is exposed, because I'm not going to give the company's name at this present time, but when that's exposed, and those things are going on, and then you call in those in place, and they tell you they have no knowledge. No, they didn't call us and tell us that. But then, after multi-calls come in, oh yeah, well it happened on such and such a day.
Okay, so
They contained it in that place.
let me go back to just a real central fact. Anytime your eyes, throat, anything is burning, or anything you cough, or any headache, please call 911. Because that dispatches the health department to go out and make their investigation under that hazardous materials ordinance.
But really,
It's a
can't you,
release to
if we
air.
call 911 every time, and I'm not saying I have a burning eyes every time, but if we call them frequently for that, there's going to be a penalty from now. They're going to tell us, don't call us.
I respect your judicious use of the system, Vicky, but now that I've said that, because that's the way it's supposed to be in terms of if it is causing
Do they know that?
ill, I think we want to set up a second meeting so we can talk about that hazardous materials ordinance, who does what in that process, and who's responsible for the enforcement of it. Because that doesn't fall to APCD, that falls to others. MSD has the enforcement authority for the hazardous materials ordinance.
Which is really a conflict of interest when they're regulating their peers and they're also a regulated entity. I don't know how that happened.
That's outside of our jurisdiction
Well,
too.
it
We
needs
got
to
this
change.
narrow lane here under KRS chapter 77. But those are good questions to ask them.
Okay, so let's get back to you guys, because we can set up this meeting with MSD.
Sure.
Are you guys going to set up standard operating procedures so you can utilize us as one of your tools to alert you when there's a release? You come to my house, then I tell you what I smell, you smell it yourself, and your person goes with their real-time air monitoring, and they go throughout the different chemical plants, and they follow it with their real-time air monitoring, and then we have something on that same day to say, oh my gosh, Xeon Chemicals released this. Or you knock on their door and say, wait a minute, you guys released this chemical. And
You
you're
raise
the
a really good point. And when you say real-time air monitoring, when we send folks out in the field, unlike the health department who uses a device to track VOCs in an explosive limit, they have some equipment that can help them see if there is a VOC in the air.
And we already know there are.
Tell them what VOC it is. There is no equipment that can yet tell us immediately that it is X parts per billion of Y chemical.
It's a handheld portable piece of equipment that can be taken around with an inspector.
So I
That
hear
is
you.
what Evan is working on.
Right. So the real-time measurements that we've been referring to, that's the equipment that's going in at the firearms training site.
Then you guys, what you need to do is, instead of dedicating APCD staff to this project, you need to get one of these experimental things and give it to your compliance officers so they can come out and maybe see if there's an application there, an immediate application, the one that we need versus the long time.
That's a really great suggestion, and I'm sure Evan, if you have something like that in his toolkit, will help us do that. The most, the thing that is more like that, Ebony, is really a mobile source air monitoring platform. I think Evan may have talked about that. And that is something that he is bringing to town, but it's not something that we can acquire until we're sure how it works and how robustly it works. I mean, even Google, I think, has 3 cars that it's using nationwide. So this
So there's no way that a compliance officer can have a car with that attached to their car, and as they get a complaint, they can't come to my house with that on their car?
This is what we're working for.
Yeah. Right now, today, no, but
She's got a question.
Oh, okay. And I feel like there's a couple questions that I've accumulated over this time. I feel like with Ebony's first question, where she asked about if you guys were collecting data on site on these companies, and how it had been mentioned apparently in a meeting before that it could be that these companies could say, well, we don't want to give out this information. We want to stay within them. I feel like you guys went completely around the fact that these companies might not want to give out.
They don't need to give us any information. These monitors, all those dots are outside of company fence.
No, but you guys said that you wanted to put some within the fence. And
that
so
would
if
be
that
another
happens,
way to test the equipment for a different type of use than.
but we can't get that information.
Hang on one second, let's define our jurisdiction again. So we have jurisdiction for what's called ambient air. We inspect the facilities to be sure that what they put out the ambient air meets certain parameters. But generally speaking, when it's within their fence line, as long as it doesn't cross that border, like where these monitors are outside of the community and where our firearms training will be
Air stops at the fence line.
release. Well, why we have things out in the community. But to the extent that it's on their facility and detects something on their facility, that's really not ambient air. So I don't think that in this case, I want folks to lose sight of the fact that our monitor is a regulatory monitor. It's stationary, it's right there in the area, and it's got detection limits that if there are releases, we'll see.
So it detects downwind, not upwind, is that right?
It detects which way the wind is blowing. We have some backup work that we'll be doing to be sure that we're getting adequate data.
But if these are if all those yellow dots are what you have, I'm sure you're not covering what would really be going on as much you would if you had it in the fence line. And if you guys are wanting to do it in the fence line, I don't see what you're trying to get at by putting it at the fence line. If you're just giving the data only to the companies, I'm sorry, but I'm expecting.
We're not just giving it to the companies. The data that's on the outside of the fence
Inside.
line
I'm talking about inside.
We don't have any inside.
But you guys said you're planning on doing
They're
something.
trying to. They're talking to the companies.
And what's the objective for that?
So they're trying to talk to the companies, and what Evan would do in that regard is then negotiate with the companies. At this point, in that negotiation, they would make a determination, and the company would say, we are comfortable with you giving that information out, or we're not comfortable. At that point, I think Evan, and he can speak for himself, he'll say, well, we're not comfortable with that, and so we're not going to do it. So at this point, excuse me, at this point, that's not a consideration. But there would be a negotiation, and then Evan would have to make a decision as to whether or not it would be worthwhile to pursue it. If in fact the company said, we don't want any of that information to go out, nobody to know about it, he would have a decision to make at that point. But we haven't gotten there yet. He's still in those conversations.
Well, this is just a suggestion, but I'm pretty sure that if your company does have the outcomes are bad, or the monitors are not going to want to share it, which you guys probably know. And just by what you guys have outside of the fence, I don't think it's going to cover everything that comes, as she was using the word ambient. I don't think it's going to cover all of that. And there's a lot of, so I advocate a lot for schools as a high schooler. There are a lot of schools that are really close to these companies that will probably not be covered by these sensors that are outside of the fence. But this data like this, that would be inside the fence, would really be beneficial to that.
Well, we're not at all the schools, but they do have sensors located at 2 of the schools
in that area.
Question
about that as well. I've been doing a lot of work with JC. I know that JCPS JCPS does not like for you to test anything at the school, because if they find out there's a problem, they're obligated to fix the problem. Especially if parents find out about it, they're going to be mad. But JCPS isn't going to fix it. So how did you guys get the permission to do that? And are you really going to let that information out? Because JCPS, I know they're not going to want to be liable for any problems you may find on campuses.
Yeah, we worked with them. We have some of our
So they
other
have plans.
monitoring
They have
sites.
plans that if they found out something's wrong, they have plans that they're actually going to fix it.
Those are passive monitors, but JCPS, I don't know, it's not theirs to fix. It's ambient air from the company.
But obviously,
the point
if
was
you're
they
taking it out, people are
trying
going
to
to
find the back trajectory to what is the source of those emissions.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we also used some of the schools during West Louisville air toxic study. Those were sites where we had passive monitoring. So we're really, to that extent, we're replicating work with JCPS that they are familiar with. This technology that Evan's doing has similar siting, similar capacity. Our air toxic site was, as part of West Louisville air toxic study, it is the site with the maximum ambient concentration of chemicals from Rubber Town. So it was used as the site of maximum impact for the WLATS, which is why we chose it to locate the gas chromatograph there. Our ultimate hope with our data is that we will evaluate it on a daily basis to be sure that it's valid, because that's what makes it regulatory data. We're planning to look at it weekly to determine trends. As with any monitoring that we do, like SO2, which is a source-specific pollutant, if we see a spike, we follow up with an inspection and a call to the company to determine if they've had an upset condition. So where in the past you may have had these releases where people were pointing fingers, the detection limits on the gas chromatograph were so much more sensitive than the sumicanister WLATS study, and again, it's in near real time in half an hour increments, that we should be able to see that information actually showing up in the monitor. So what we're going to do is different than what EPA will do with their data. We do feel that we have an adequate location for the monitor. Ultimately, our goal would be to get a nice, robust data set and to look at it from a risk assessment perspective, comparing it to the original WLATS. So that will give us some ground truth in the work that we've done through STAR.
Okay, so it's been so much of this is over my head. I just remember you, Ebony, asking about thresholds, and I don't know that was ever answered in terms of establishing some minimum limits. Was that answered and I missed it?
So there are a couple of different thresholds. There are ones that we'll look at for an emergency perspective, and our office is working with Jim Bottom in EMA, and we're establishing that using other EPA programs.
EMA is the
Emergency
Louisville
Management.
Emergency Management Agency.
Right.
It's
So
local.
it's a little agency. He's a first responder. So we'll put those numbers together. But even in our STAR program, we have benchmark ambient concentrations that are the volume of air that equals a risk of 1 million. So we know those numbers for all the chemicals that we'll be looking at that are category 1 tax. Those are the ones that were of most concern during the West Louisville air toxic study. There are a couple of other chemicals, and we'll differentiate this on our website. So we'll have identification of the ones that were category 1 tax from the WLATS study. And then there are 6 or 7 chemicals that we're also looking at because they're highly photochemical reactive, which means they make a lot of ozone for us. So we're interested in what we're seeing in those chemicals as well. And I see that when we get this information up on the website, we'll need to help make that clear. So our takeaways from this tonight are that we need to set up a meeting with MSD on the odors. We need to set up a meeting with MSD and the health department on responding to hazardous material ordinance releases, and we can better explain our role as well, and I'll be happy to get you another copy of the SOP. And for anyone who's interested, on our website, Brian Bingham, who is the chief engineer for MSD, came and gave a presentation on the work they did in Park Duval to identify the catch basins that were untrapped, and the work that they undertook to make sure that those traps were in place. I think there's some additional work that Brian can help put in place in terms of being sure.
Is that the May board meeting?
Yes, it was the May board meeting. So we'll make sure to put that on our landing page, and I'll be happy if you'll leave me your email address to send you a copy.
I think there's another suggestion, but like truly take this serious for this. A lot of you guys are saying like, go to my website, or like you guys are gonna be sharing this with us. I've been on your guys' website multiple times, and on your email list, we send out like all these things that you guys are gonna talk about the meetings, and you guys kind of don't avoid using like professional jargon that we're not going to know as citizens. The average American reads like eighth grade level, and I feel like even if you share out this information, it's very hard to understand. And I don't know if you guys are going to change that to make it like easier for like regular citizens to be able to
I'm
read
really
it.
glad that you raised that, because that's one of the reasons why Dr. Ken Mitchell is here tonight, because we want to be sure we hit that right mark, as well as Cheryl Good. So we are looking at other programs that have information. Houston Ship Channel, for example, has an air toxics program where they're reporting their information. And so we're always looking for best practices. If you know of a site that uses good information or depicts that information in a good way, please share that with us. You know, we look to our peers to help us find ways to better communicate. And again, if you run across something that is really good at presenting information, please let us know.
So following up on this, on her question, you said that you're going to be working with the EMA, the Emergency Management Agency, to establish thresholds. Is that what you said?
The thresholds are already established. We're going to go ahead and find a way to put those out in a format that's good.
Okay. So the thresholds are established. Will that be applied to the EPA project and to the gas chromatograph?
Sure. Although, again, Evan, you want to be sure. Evan is going to have information in the field. Our information is going to come in 30 minutes. It's not going to be something that is going to be able, we maybe have some ways to set up some alarms, but in terms of something happening in the field and that data being read by the monitor and sent to the agency, there's a little bit of lag time.
So, yeah, I understand lag time. We need to know, so this is what we need to know, because we understand all about lag time. What we need to know is, can you write down what your estimated lag time is, or what your estimated time is between when you get some data, when it will come to you, and when you will share it on your website. So if you do those things, that will at least give us something.
Or notifications to the website, and both notification system and the website.
And ever since the red alert thing left and the lens system has come, I've not received one notification. So is there a procedure for that? I mean, there's so many things that we've asked that really haven't been answered here.
That's a good question. And in terms of Lens Alert, again, that's an EMA product. When we set up the meeting to talk about the Hazardous Materials Ordinance, we'll make sure that someone is there to answer that question as to how it works.
So next,
a better expert.
So I'm going to make this statement, because you guys often always say, we're not the first responders. But you guys are the people that are the enforcement arm of everything.
Right.
You all should be in the know about everything. So you shouldn't have to say, well, let's talk to MSD about it, or let's talk to EMA. That should have already been talked about. You should be telling them some things to do. You are the people that send out the notices of violation.
Right.
So therefore, you guys should be having all this together. It's just too choppy for me. There's no process. It's not clear. I don't understand why it's not clear.
And the Office of Sustainability don't even know what they do. Like, I mean, this is stupid.
Okay, so who's held? My question is, in the process of all this, since you all are actually the people who need to, and who are the enforcers of regulation, who is held accountable?
So there are a couple of different. Everybody's accountable. They're a regulated source or a homeowner who burns trash. They're accountable. So we have rules and regulations. Those are what we enforce.
I don't see homeowners actually burning trash. I've not seen that from the peons.
The mayor, I think, is held accountable, and we are not voting his ass back in anymore.
And so, when these people violate whatever the rules and regulations are, what do you all do to hold them accountable?
That's a great question. So we conduct an investigation to confirm that a standard has been violated. So that takes going to the source. It takes looking at their permit, if they're a permitted source. and that it takes notifying the source through a notice of violation. Once that's out there, we may resolve it through an agreed board order, or we can take a company to an advisory agreement.
And sometimes shut them down.
In terms of shutting them down, that's a legal process.
I want to let everybody know, I'm going
Thank
to
you.
try to get the lights on, just to start
Okay, so, yeah, so, I mean, do they have to pay something, or they do, where does that money go?
Goes into our penalty funds. Those are agency funds that we use to fund our air toxics monitoring, for example, came out of our penalty funds. We use it to pay for our county attorney and paralegal who support us through our legal actions.
So when
We also use it for community outreach through our Long Care for Cleaner Air and Rural Wellness programs.
Okay, and so when you're doing all of this, that seems like a long process.
It can be, because we do have to be sure that we're giving people due process, which means we have to have a solid investigation so that we can take legal action. Otherwise, we might.
I was going to say, but the end of an enforcement action is not the point at which we assume there's compliance with a regulation. That's the first goal, is compliance, as far as reducing an excess release or a work practice or faulty equipment, whatever that may be. That is first and foremost. The enforcement process does end up taking some time for the process.
But this stuff is mainly self-reported, correct? So you don't have real-time air monitors. So you kind of have to catch them, or in which, again, utilizing us as a tool to get that first initial smell and then go out and investigate. If they don't self-report that they've had a malfunction, you don't know, but guess what? We know.
So some of the companies do have SIMs, they have continuous emissions monitoring. Those are some of our bigger companies.
And you guys get the data?
We do. So those are the really big companies. With respect to, monitoring, again, we're here today. We were going to give you a quick update on where we are with our air toxics, monitor the gas chromatograph that's going in the field. Tom, do you want to just tell everybody where we're at with that?
All right, so we've, at the firearms training site, we've got a new shelter and building installed that's to handle all our new equipment. It's much needed upgrade to facilitate our path forward. We have the new gas chromatograph installed. We're going through calibration, training, and approval processes right now. It does take some time. It's a very complicated piece of equipment. We are on target to be live with that data, good data, by January 1st. We also have sulfur dioxide up at that site already. We have 2 of Evan's S-pods at that site. We also have one of the Tricorn Tech gas chromatographs that's referenced by Evan, and one of the Inmet GCs as well. So we have 3 gas chromatographs on that site. Ours, the regulatory one, is looking good so far. Again, it's going to take some time to make sure that data is rock solid. Pretty complex. And our hope is to, make sure that data is representative of half-hour and hourly concentrations of the ambient air. At our last meeting, according to Russ Barnett, who did the previous study, he felt that was the best location for their gas chromatograph.
This is my first meeting, you probably not working. And this is to me, you've seen a lot about this. Have you seen anything done? Have you seen whether or not
Over the years, you mean?
in the last 2 years?
That's a huge question. I mean, it's low. I started learning about this in 2003. I've seen the chemical plants put some new technology.
Okay, so something is being done.
Now, if you're talking about with the regulatory agency, then she can tell you what they've done. I don't know what they've done because I've been simply asking for them to conduct odor investigations in a effective way. That has not happened in all the years that I've been knowledgeable of this, which is since 2003. So that's something that simple that can actually generate more penalty funds, could change behavior of chemical plants because they're immediately being cited and issued notices of a violation. that would be one of the most cost-effective, it seems to me, cost-effective, fastest, and a system that would actually directly help us immediately.
Responsive.
Thank you, responsive. So they haven't done that, so that's what I'm concerned about. But
What would it take for that to happen?
Well, let me go back and let you know that I've not given out any SOPs.
and I'm gonna look at it, I could have had.
I helped to you, I'm good with that, but I do want to let you know that, the agency itself, the federal law sets the floor for us. And we as a community, many of the people in the room really pushed for this in 2005, came together, and out of that came the Strategic Toxic Air Reduction Program. So let me tell you all a little bit about that, because that takes up a great amount of our resources in terms of implementing that program through permitting, being sure that compliance is undertaken, and then taking enforcement action, which is still pending. So that is coming with respect to American synthetic rubber pump. That NOV has been issued. It's not yet resolved because of trying to get them in a position with this request for modification. In 1999, ASRC emitted 231,000 pounds of mercury. Now, last year they emitted close to 7,000. That's a tremendous reduction. Overall, in our community, since the STAR program has gone into effect, we've seen a reduction of 2.5 million pounds of non-electric generating utility pollution. That's the VOCs that Rubbertown emits. We've had a tremendous reduction since 2015 and 2016 in the electric generating utility sector. Millions of pounds of things like hydrochloric acid and hydrosulfuric acid, which form particulate matter, which make people ill. So, with respect to what we are doing, we as a community, and our agency in particular, we're one of 6 local air toxics programs, or not 6 air toxic programs. It's not EPA's program, that are being implemented here in the nation. So, STAR is a work in progress. It is not a one and done analysis. It is an iterative analysis. Every time a company expands or adds a new chemical, they have to send it through us. Every time they renew their operating permit, they have to reevaluate their emissions. So we are looking at that strategic toxic air reduction program.
But, okay, I mean, in terms of incorporating the ideas that, using the community as a resource, as she's outlined, what would it take for that to happen?
Well, we do see you as a resource. What we find sometimes is, I think, many times folks don't call. Because you perceive that we won't do anything. But
no, not because of me.
Know.
Let me tell you, I am on Facebook and everyone, I promote your calling, I do that, and what's problematic about this is, first of all, the STAR program, we're not mad at the STAR program, we're mad at the enforcement of it. Secondly, as far as why don't you get a lot of calls, is because, number one, you guys don't really advertise calling except on your website. Like, there's so many Louisville festivals you guys could be at. Secondly, because, I'm a mother and a wife and a daughter. I don't even, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have an income to be going out and trying to put up a billboard or canvas in the neighborhood with my own money and all of that. So the burden of that should not be on the people. The burden of that should be on the regulatory agency to inform people. And with this whole rise and these push, people coming in our neighborhood who, I feel compassion for, who have lots of drug issues, but for some reason they're being relocated in West Louisville. I mean, there could be an increase in meth labs, and that would be catastrophic. So an odor investigation that would be effective would also maybe pick something up like that.
And that's a really good point, in terms of meth labs. That is a concern, not only for the odors it produces, but for the environmental contamination that it causes. That's something, though, that we do need people to call us. We need to have frequent calls.
And they need to understand how to do that. And it can't come through me. I want to help you guys. I've tried. It cannot come through me. I've pretty much had it with this, and I have so many other things to do in my life than to try to be
And it's
the
not
community
fair.
arm
It's not
for this. These are the procedures. No, you guys need to set up your Facebook page. You need to contact every Facebook page that has neighborhood Facebook pages, and you need to monthly send them something. You need to have a quarterly meeting update on all your projects. You need to have, and in that quarterly meeting, you need to go over all these things, and you need to listen to people, because too many times in this country, in this world, we're doing the top-down mess, and you need to be listening to the folks on the bottom who can save you so much money with the little bit of staff that you have if you just listen to some of the ideas. They're not, you guys, I'm telling you, you know, when you refer to us as agitators and kind of wave your hand like we don't know what we're talking about, we are experts. We are experts in this thing. We may not be chemical engineers, but we know what we're talking about.
So I heard some things that Ebony shared in terms of communication. So I would be willing, Ebony, to call you. And you brought up several things, Facebook and some other stuff that I heard. I'd be willing to call you, and perhaps you could make a list of those things that you just suggested, and then talk to the APCD to see if
We absolutely appreciate the suggestion.
And do we need to
or anybody else who.
Do we need to revisit your list of recommendations?
I'll send them back to Cheryl, and I think that's great, because I think that I'm not able to articulate, and maybe it's because I have a little bit of emotion behind it, but I am unable to articulate how severe and urgent this issue is. When you're talking about my baby, you're talking about my mentor over there, you're talking about my high school, person over there, you're talking about another mentor. People's lives are at stake. And even if their lives are not at stake, who wants to come home and smell that stuff? And it's not just, and I know that she said it smelled like crap, and it's not just that. It's also chemicals.
So I don't disagree with you. However, there are two entities. One is a regulatory entity. It's one everybody pays. And it's one that is beholden to the ratepayers as much as they are to us as a regulated entity. So we can take two approaches here. One is to put that pressure on MSD. The other is to go ahead and chip away at each chemical company so that it's not just this balloon of chemical. One thing that Evan had suggested, and if y'all want to think about this and let us know whether this is something that we want to undertake together, that would be to do an odor training so that there's a consistent way for people to describe odors, which would be very helpful for us. And I think it would be helpful for Evan as he deploys things in the field. So if we want to do that, that's something that we can set up for a Saturday. We can set it up for evenings in addition, so that we can get the right group of people in to do that work.
Okay, so now my next question, and I heard you say something about every time they add a chemical or something of that nature, that they have to report. Now, they report that to you guys, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now, if you don't have direct ability to get in there and to talk with them, and you have to rely on whether they will give you that information or not, how do you know and how do we know those chemicals that are being added are being reported?
That's a really great question, and all I can tell you is that it's a multi-phased approach. So to start the process, companies have to give us an application, and our engineers review that application to be sure that the process is well defined, the chemicals are all included, and that we understand what that process will be. And then we send engineers out into the facilities to inspect, to be sure that what the company has told us is there is actually there and included in the permit. So it's a very robust system. Companies also, as Ebony pointed out, they do self-report, but they also get inspected. They also have to go through permitting. So there are a lot of different eyes that look at this. I think one of the things we've talked about, and I think y'all may have to spend the next year working with APCD, is helping helping people have a better understanding of our process and what that process looks like from soup to nuts. Because permitting plus compliance plus enforcement is what equals clean air. That's a continuum. It's not, we just write permits and we never look back. It is a continuum of work, it's continuous work. So that's what our agency does. Certainly we can help make that process more transparent. There are opportunities in our work. We're required to have public participation. Our rules set out what our minimum public participation is. So that's our floor, it's not our ceiling. So we'll work together on these things. I know I've talked an awful long time, and I appreciate your all's time very much.
No, I'm glad that you are.
In terms of letting folks know about these upcoming meetings with MSD, we have a listserv through our office where we'll send out a notice that this meeting is happening. We're going to also ask MSD to notify its customers that this meeting is happening. Now, if there are better ways for us to advertise, I'm sure Facebook is an awesome idea. We'll also do Twitter. If there are other
service announcements on television.
on Metro TV,
Like the Metro Television.
I think those are excellent suggestions. And so you'll need to keep your eyes open for those. If you would like to leave me your email address tonight, we'll be happy to send you an invitation when these meetings get set up.
And, you know, we always appreciate, we know not everybody's on an email listserv, but for those that are, kind of passing that along too. So if there are other community groups, neighborhood associations that are interested in these issues, posting it on those Facebook pages, just kind of, you know, going down the line, get as broadcast as we can. So we appreciate that. I see it happen, and it's a good thing.
Right, because see, everybody's not on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so that needs to be a PSA.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of helping to do that, I'm sure that MSD will be able to help us be sure that we hit the right note with that and get that information out there.
Again, this is my first meeting, so my question is, I know it's sounds like a lot of new initiatives today. So if there's somebody that is taking minutes, or is it a video that you refer back to know what?
Absolutely. Okay. And for those here today, those who may not be here today, our website is going, I know I'm talking about our website, but if folks can find it, the QAP, the QAPP that Evan mentioned, that is the kind of the program-specific work that he'll be undertaking is available there. This video will be posted on that page as well for folks who didn't get a chance to come tonight but might want to see what the proceedings were. We'll also be putting a presentation from April. I think that may already be there. This presentation and the fact sheet that we have tonight.
Now, the link to that specific spot on our site is on the home landing page right at the top of the list. So, and I do appreciate the comments on the level of information that's on our website, and that's something that we've become mindful of and are working toward, and maybe reaching out to some folks in the community for some help with hitting the right mark on that information. We have a lot of different audiences for our website, and I think often it gets geared toward the regulated entities that need to come to our website for forms and applications and regulations and rules, and we need to make sure that we're hitting the mark for them, but we need to make sure that we're hitting the mark for the rest of our community. So I do appreciate those comments. And
do you have a community tab on your website?
Oh, that's a good idea.
that is a really good idea. I mean, we don't have tabs, but I want to figure out how we could do something like that, kind of a community layer that
right.
Yeah, helps people find, but you don't have to get past regulations to get to the conversations like we're having tonight. That's a really, really good idea.
And I know, again, first meeting, and I'm happy. The other thing I'd like to know is, somebody in here might have insight on this, is what we can do individually within our own homes to push that odor out.
So I'm very glad that you mentioned that, because when we met with Brian Bingham in April or May, one of the things that he indicated would be an initiative from MSD would be to come back out to the Park Duval neighborhood and be sure that there, in people's yards, for example, there may be a clean out, a pipe comes out of the ground with a white cap on top of it, for example, that if that is broken, for example, that can let odors out of the sewer system. If your home's traps, you don't have any jurisdiction inside people's homes, but if your home's traps, like underneath your sink, there's a pipe that looks like a J. The water that's held there is what keeps the odor from coming in your home. But there may need to be some looking at that structure or floor drains in your floor. And that's really where MSD is going to get to be the lead on that.
But then see that what happens when I was almost skeptical even mentioning that is because what happens is we get a charge back in some kind of way.
I think this is something where that's something where I think we need to raise that with MSD, in particular in light of the community's concerns and widespread concerns in terms of other places that odors can enter your house, and I doubt that it's part involved, that it may be in other places in the world. Believe it or not, if your home's gutters go down through the ground, you don't discharge it on top of the ground, they're plumbed to go into that combined stormwater sewer system. That sometimes what happens is the odors come out of the gutters, and then they get swept into, like I said, the storm bedroom window. And again, is really something that MSD is going to help folks pinpoint. But there are many places in your home where sewer odors can be present. So at this meeting, we'll tip Brian up to what the community has told us tonight. We'll share this video with him so that he can be prepared for this meeting, and we can put a plan in place that helps address those concerns. But again, you don't have to wait for us. You are, anytime today, please feel free to call MSD and tell them what you're experiencing, because they have to let the Public Service Commission and others that your council even know how they're doing in responding to your complaints, because you pay them.
It's taken me 3 years. I'm sure that MSD, where I live, is where they park their trucks and things of that nature, that they do their shopping on. It's not, the plan. But having said that, they put up a big fence right there, because I live at the very end of the farm. It's taken me, I moved back into this house that I was practically raised in after my mother died. Now it's been 7 years. It's taken me 7 years to get them to get the leaves and the trees out from that fence coming through that scratches my car as I get into my driveway. And that is simple stuff.
I would agree with you. And I hope that when we have this meeting that you'll share that with Brian Bingham. One of the other places that I think is overlooked, we have a board meeting every month. It's the third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. There is an open opportunity for people to come in and speak on any issue. If you can't be there, please feel free to call me and leave me a message before the board meeting, and I'll relay that to our board. You can also send an email if you prefer. That information goes to our board.
I think also your meetings are at 10 a.m. Like, I don't know what hours you guys work, but like people that are paid to go to the meetings. I go to school. I don't think we want me missing school to go to it. I have some other high schoolers here with me.
So we
would love to be there. So even if it's like 3 or 4 or 5,
sure,
like we can be there. But
try to hold public hearings at times where the folks can come. But anytime that you want to look at the prior board or posting videos after the board meeting, I'll take comment from you to our board from last month's meeting. That's a standing, open opportunity for you to comment to the board. And it can be about anything related to air. Last month's board meeting, a consent or a agreed board order that we're working through. That's where we're looking for you all. But MSD has a monthly board meeting as well. It's at 1 o'clock on the first Monday of the month, I believe.
I just want to see how 10 a.m. is a better time for most people. Most people do full-time jobs. Most people go to school. I don't see how 10 a.m. is the best time for most people at all.
That's something that we'll take back to our board. They are a volunteer board. They set the times for our meetings. But again, we'll take that back to our board and be sure that they've heard what you said. So our next board meeting comes to relate to our board that concern. So please feel free to use that to call us. Our board is our regulatory body. They're the ones who approve agreed board orders. They're the ones who approve our regulatory program. is our, that is the email that we to the board's page.
Just give it to all of you.
Yes.
Okay, this.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. So, I'm sorry, we're running out of edits. Michelle has taken great notes. To the extent we watch this and we have questions from you all, we may reach out to you to get a little bit more detail. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
I go to, I'm a junior. I go to